Hey, you guys. Okay, earlier, my mom and I were in this conversation. I don't even know how it started, but we were in this conversation about little kids. And I don't know, we may have been talking about my boys when they were little, or maybe my grandson. And we were talking about Christmas presents and different things. And somehow the conversation got off into how little kids, I forget the word she used, but they basically obsess over things sometimes. They fixate. They get fixated on objects or books or toys or things, even ideas sometimes that they don't know anything about, and they will really fixate on it and become obsessed with it sometimes, and just really be so serious about it. And it's the funniest thing watching. My boys did it a few times growing up, and I've seen other little kids do it. I can remember, I'll give you an example in a second of something I remember from being a little kid, fixated on it, knew nothing about it. And it was the funniest thing looking back on it now. Okay, but this was the conversation: how little children before a certain age, they just really fixate on things and they won't even know anything about it. And it'll be like life and death to them. No, I must have that. And, varying degrees all across my mind. We were like, I wonder why, and then we began to swap funny stories. She from her childhood and I from mine. I figured she'd remember, but she really didn't. I said, do you remember the time that I don't remember exactly how old I was. I feel like I was somewhere between the age of 7 and 9, probably around 8 or 9 years of age. Still, the memory's very, very blurry to me. I don't know where I got this damn book. I don't know where I got the freaking idea. My parents used to be court ordered to go to parenting meetings. I think I may have picked it up there. There's a book about Buffalo Bill. I don't know squat about Buffalo Bill. Still don't to this day, really. Damn sure didn't back then. I was just a little girl. This book came from out of nowhere, and I fixated on it, and I was due to go to a little girl's birthday party. That didn't happen often in my childhood. I think one time out of my entire childhood, I had a girl over for my birthday party, and one time I was allowed to attend a birthday party. That was my father. He was very controlling, very isolating towards us. My mother was okay with our social life, and she tried to sneak around and help us do things, but my father was very controlling. So one time I ever remember getting to go out and go to a little friend's birthday party. My mom dropped me off. It was a little girl. I'm trying to think what grade, fourth, fifth grade, maybe. And I remember this blurry memory. I don't remember all the details around it, but I remember I insisted that I want to give her this Buffalo Bill book. And I just remember my heart was set on it. I don't know why. I don't know. No, I don't remember anything about Buffalo Bill, learning, hearing nothing about it, nothing. This was just an old book. Right. Instead of a little girl's toy or a Barbie or a pretty shirt or a bracelet or any freaking thing, I wanted to give her this Buffalo Bill book. And I just remember a faint memory of it being so insistent and so important to me. And I don't remember if I know my mom agreed to it because, even though she has personality disorder and she has her ways, she has high narcissism sometimes, and sometimes she does lack empathy. And I've talked about a lot of this other shit, but a lot of the time I do have other good memories of her trying to be understanding of our feelings as kids. And well, okay, if that's really what you want. So she did let me take the book to the girl. I don't recall if she added a little girly present in with it or she just let me go on with my insisting to be embarrassed at this birthday party. So I ended up at the party, and the memories are so old, y'all, so blurry. I'm 47, so this is old. But I just remember being at this girl's house, sitting around the birthday table with all the other little girls and some of their parents, and it came my turn to give my present, and everybody kind of just looked at me like, here it is. And everybody just kind of looked at me like, okay, nice. The parents were trying to. It was very awkward, and I don't remember any more of it than that, how it turned out or whatnot. But she and I having this conversation, it just brought back a weird memory like that. And we began to discuss. She told me about a hat that she fixated on as a little kid. And I started to remember things that my children had fixated on for a short time. And then we began to remember other things from my childhood, okay, in a different context, besides, the book, which that may go along with this too. I also began to remember, which how could I forget it? It's still with me to this day, the way I fixated on Spanish language and Spanish Mexican culture. That came to me very early in my younger life. And I was not any relation to any Mexican people. Nobody around me ever spoke Spanish. Didn't watch it on television. I don't know where that came from. I really don't. I had a little Mexican type dress. Now that dress, I saw Madonna wearing one just like it in a video. But nonetheless, up until that point, this was before I had ever heard Madonna speak Spanish. This was way before, and I don't know. Maybe, you never know. You may hear an entertainer doing something. What I'm saying is I don't recall it ever being all day, every day, or consistently played on the television or the radio. Something that was just consistent, that naturally would get in your head, and eventually you would develop an affinity for it. Or an aversion to it too. Maybe the opposite. Just like Chopin. My mother listened to classical music growing up. My father, rock. I'm on all ends of the spectrum. I'm a huge music lover. But just from hearing my mom play that a lot in the car and in her room, and to top it off, I took ballet for 8 years. They played a lot of Chopin. Back then, I didn't know who that composer was. I wouldn't come to really know the composers until I was in my late 20s, almost 30. But to this day, once I got older, I started looking them up. I started studying them and gravitating back towards those particular pieces of music that I heard early on in ballet. Every class, that music. And to this day, I'm a huge Chopin fan. I love his music. It just does something for me, keeps me really calm, and I love it. So I just think it's an interesting topic, the way things work when we're children. But here's where this conversation went. We're not done yet, okay? It's interesting. We began to talk about, the thought came across my mind, and you guys know how I am. I'm going to take it there, okay? Whether it sounds weird or not. Where does all that come from? Now, some of it I'm talking about after we have logically analyzed it. We have found the root. We've looked for causes. We've placed things where they go. Oh, that's where she saw it. Oh, this was a consistent thing in the childhood. Okay, no wonder. After we've kind of sorted all that and we're aware of those things. Now, it also could be something that you didn't hear. Like with me, the Mexican thing, the Spanish language, the music, the culture. That is something that it may be stuff that you might see every once in a while. Maybe you saw it one time and it just had a drastic impact on you. It really stuck with you. These things interest me. Why? And I don't think it can always be explained in a psychological way. Of course, they will. There is an explanation for it. But I always think about the spiritual side of things. And I got to thinking, so what if it was something that you actually saw in this life? Say it wasn't consistently played in your life or an exposure that you were around consistently, but you saw it one time, and the first time you did, it just sent chills all over your body, and you were very small, but you just knew that was your thing, or you just knew that was something you loved, okay? And it became a thing for you on throughout your life. Say that did happen. You did see it somewhere in this life. Yeah, y'all can already catch on to where this is going to go. Right, past life shit. It interests me. So what? I think it's fascinating. And so we began to talk about, why is it that there are some things that kid never saw before, doesn't know shit about, and they, in their heart and soul, they are just so serious. Sometimes they outgrow that. It's just a phase. Sometimes they don't. And it sticks with them through life, and it becomes a passion and a love or a terrible aversion. Oh, no. With no logical explanation, because they weren't exposed or traumatized or had nothing to do with it in this life. I find that fascinating, and I began to talk about what if it does stem from a past life, a previous life. or something before this incarnation. I just think that kind of shit is fascinating, and I love watching little children and even, other adults, and learning about the things that have been with them since childhood, things that came to them, things that in their deepest soul that they are passionate about or drawn to or can't stand, are fearful of, because to me, I do sometimes think, and again, after I've already logically analyzed and found where everything goes and what exposures were where, I do think it has something to do with before this life, before this incarnation, who we are on a soul level, a cellular level, whatever, of many, many, many lives. And that energy, still parts of it with us, And they say in these schools of thought and teaching that the veil is, the blinders kind of come down, everything is erased after around age 2 to 3. Well, we can't even talk up until then. The people who do teach about reincarnation and discuss these different theories and whatnot. And they say, yeah, around age 2 or 3, we have no more memory of what we were, where we came from, but we still have it up till then. And when we dream and all of that, we're busy traveling back and forth, getting last minute instructions and whatever, the soul, so that we can move on into this life. And then the veil comes down because we need to focus on this incarnation, not who we were. That's the school of thought. That's the teachings on it. So it's just interesting to me. But I feel like even though that veil may come down and we don't have a clue who we were, where we came from, none of that shit, some of these things that kids fixate on, no, fears that the parents can't explain, psychologists can't explain, never been exposed to anything like that, didn't see it on TV, no freaking way, where did it come from? And we humans, and scientists and whatever, we've always got to have a damn logical explanation, but sometimes I don't think there is one. And I don't think even they know everything. They don't have all the answers. They can't freaking tell you. And so to me, I don't get down with that whole people judging me for thinking outside the box or for thinking in a spiritual way or in a different way, because to me, that's just intelligence. Because it's ignorant to think that, well, that's it. This is all we have proof of. So we are going to go with a definite. There is nothing else. There are no more answers, even though we've never been to the beyond. Like, we don't know. There's just shit that doesn't make sense to me that nobody knows, that they don't know. And so for me, people trying to judge you, laugh at you, mock you when you question and you think outside the box, to me, that's just ignorance to me. I've got to have a well-rounded, this is what we know. This is what we've seen so far. This is what we have proof of so far. But there are other things happening that we don't have answers to, that we feel and we pick up energy on. And there are other damn things to be thought of out here. What about thinking of it in this way? What if that's a possibility? And I just don't think there's a person on earth that can say it's not. They don't know that for sure. They've never, if they're alive and breathing and talking to you, 9 times out of 10, for the most part, no, they've never passed away. They haven't gone to the other side and remembered it and came back, and they don't know what the hell. They can't answer it. So, it's just fascinating to me. But yeah, we got to talking about that. Like, what if all of these things, and I'm not talking about everything, y'all. Like, people get confused with this and they make quick judgments of, oh, that's just silly. You probably think every little wind puff is a past life or a meaningful or a pattern, or fuck no. I wouldn't be able to gain accurate knowledge that way. No, I have to use logical and analytical thinking. I have to use critical thinking and reason and put things where they go. I have to, after I've exhausted every question and every possible explanation in my analysis and looking for answers, and where did that come from? Why was it there? Oh, it probably relates to this. Oh, it's probably because of that. It's after I go through that process first that then I turn to my more spiritual and intuitive feelings about things and thoughts about things and picking up on that. And why not? That's well balanced to me. But it's so fascinating. I look at a lot of people and I think, there are things that my brother has always been drawn to since he was a little boy. that nobody in our family did. He never got around stuff like that. He was obsessed with wearing little business suits and ties as an 8, 9, 10-year-old boy, the dead presidents, banking, drawing old trucks. I feel like my brother is a very old soul, and I've got my theories about where he came from and what's going on with him, but I just find it so interesting. That stuff has been with him all his life. He kind of outgrew the business suit thing and the presidents and that, but a lot of his artistic and love of old retro is still with him to this day. But you notice how that little phase in time where he was obsessed with the way dressing like a grown-ass man, like a banker, like a businessman, and obsessed with the dead presidents and studying them and all this stuff, that kind of faded out. I feel like those things are still with us for any number of years in each incarnation. The blinder may come down, the amnesia may come on us and people question all this stuff. Well, I study a lot of teachers that teach the answers to this kind of stuff. Dolores Cannon is one of them. I'm very fond of her work. Well, why aren't we allowed to see everything and know everything? It would make it a lot easier. Why do we have to be blinded to who we used to be? Why do we have to come into this life not having the answers about what we planned and where we're going and which choice to take and she answers, then what would be the point of coming here? If you had all the answers, if you didn't come here, we come here for experience, to experience emotion that we can't experience there. Okay. How these particular teachers describe that whole thing, the energy on the other side, there's no negativity. There is no fear. There's no doubt. There's no hatred, no anger, no envy, no ego. It's all love, the highest frequency of love. And it's impossible without a human form and coming here to experience those things and experience emotion and choices, hard choices, and basically suffering. Yes. And a lot of this shit makes sense to me, the way they teach this. It's kind of the theories that resonate most with me. I can't tell y'all what to think. I find it fascinating. And anyway, I'm going to clip this video. I got to go. But yeah, it made me think all the things that little kids, and he outgrew that, banker, whatever, dressing a certain way. But what if that was, it made me think, even though he couldn't remember who he was and he couldn't remember all the details, part of that stuff I feel like is still in us. And it comes out in our passions and our hobbies, our gifts, our longings. But sometimes the way to discern it is, even though some kids outgrow it, some stuff stays with us all of our life. The way I discern the differences in just a passing fancy or something that happened because of something I saw in this life or something that might be really special on that level from a past life or from something higher, the way I discern that is I can tell a difference if it's something that just nags and nags at me, and it just creates this desperate feeling of longing and passion, and I'm very in tune with myself emotionally. Okay, I've worked on that a lot through the years, and I can tell the difference between different emotions and what they mean. Just like the different cries in your baby, the different sounds and barks and noises in your dog. Same with our emotions for some of us who are very in tune with that type of thing. We know the slightest difference, and it's going to mean something different in our intuition. So that's how and no, I don't have a lot of them, but I do. There's a couple things from my childhood that I do think possibly came from something else that I was prior to this incarnation. That I don't know. I'm not saying I was that person. Maybe I loved a person like that, or maybe that was part of my study, or I don't know, but I think the possibilities are endless and it's fascinating. Sloan Bella is a psychic that I'm really fond of. She has a really rough backstory. She had to work her way up through a lot of trauma. I relate to a lot of shit in her life, but she worked her way up to become, astrologer and psychic to the stars. Astrology is a science, and she's very well studied and well informed. She's a great teacher. I learn a lot just listening to her. But she also channels energy. She channels energy of people who are living and the energy around them, and she channels energy of people who are already passed on. And she does. She works for celebrities a lot, and she does it for a lot of well-known people. She'll have these videos on her channel, and I forgot even why I brought her up, but she talks about this stuff like it's just common knowledge, like and there are those, I believe it's on Netflix, there's those shows, The Ghost Inside My Child, which things catch on, and there are people that take things and they make it into something effed up that isn't legitimate to make money off of it, and then they give the really legitimate stuff a really bad name and reputation. But I think when that first started out, someone I know that is a very well-to-do, affluent, no-nonsense businesswoman, science-minded, she was actually watching that stuff after she lost her husband. And even she gravitated towards astrology and energy after death, and she was watching that about the children who 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old were having dreams and coming up with things that their parents didn't know where the hell it was coming from because they didn't see it on TV. You know your kid, you know what their schedule is, you know what they're doing. They didn't know anybody like that. They don't know where they got these names. These kids would have names, and I've got to go back and save Mr. Davis and or this one and that one, or that was my other mommy, and that's the park I used to play in. And they would just have all these details. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. And their parents were just flabbergasted. And tracing it back, it turned out that some of them actually, it was true. They knew what they were talking about. And they are that person in this little body, and they would go and find the family members of the people they're talking about. And it's just crazy. It's interesting though. How the hell would you deal with a situation like that? Anyway, I gotta go. I think it's fascinating. Like me and the Mexican thing, the Spanish thing, the way certain parts of that create everything from sorrow in me to grief to longing to fiercely defending it to there's something there. I love that culture. I love that language. It comes naturally to me to want to speak it. When I practice and I learn and study the language, I've taken several courses in it. Finally got to do that. All of my life, I wasn't able to take Spanish, even in school, and I wanted to. Finally did it when I grew up and went back to college. It comes naturally for me to speak that way. I speak it beautifully when I study. I love it, the music, and I've always spoken to my pets in an accent, and it's almost like I don't know why. And then my siblings caught on to it, even Chad caught on to it, and I had all of them talking to their dogs in accents. That is something I've always done. It without a second thought. I speak to my animals in a different accent. And if I had studied in this lifetime, the words, the language, if I had applied myself more, if I would, it would just come right out. It would just, it's like it's there and it wants to be a different language, but it isn't because I don't know it. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy, but I do. I think that sometimes I really, really do think that has something to do with a past life. The whole Mexican and Spanish thing for me. And there are a couple of other things too that I could get into that really just create that same feeling in me, that longing, always longing. And I can discern that. That is different from a feeling that I would get from anything in this life. It's different than, I can't attribute like a cause for it and that would be singing, the soul, the beautiful, painful soul singing. I have always been so drawn to that and just love doing it. And, I'm really fascinated by these things though, that I think they all have ties somewhere. Sloan, that's why I brought Sloan up. She goes back, like I said, she channels the energy of people who are already deceased. She did Selena. She also did Whitney Houston. And when she did Whitney Houston, I listened to Sloan's reading of Whitney Houston's energy after she was gone, 4 years after I had my dream of Whitney Houston. That's another video I need to make about how I used to dream of dead celebrities. They come to my dream. So, Sloan said, 4 years later, I ran across Sloan's video about Whitney and her after passing and what she felt like and what was going on. She said the same exact thing that was in my fucking dream. Whitney was sad. Well, of course, I mean, anybody could say that. But in my dream, I've never told anybody on videos or whatnot. My sister knows, that my family members know. I would always tell them about these dreams instantly after they happened so that it would be documented and nobody could dispute, you just made that up, you just heard that from so-and-so. No, I've got people now that know I have these dreams and that know the details of them and when they happened back then. And in the dream, Whitney was there and she tried to take me with her. She grabbed onto me and she was tragically sad. She looked really rough. I mean, it was a scary dream and I usually don't have, they're usually not scary like that. It was really rough. And so when Sloan said this and other things, it was spot on with what Whitney's energy and what she looked like in my dream. So I don't care what anybody else's deal is on earth. You can't tell me what mine is, and that there aren't extra, there isn't something out there, something higher, something extra that we can tap into. It's not just this, okay? There's so much more than just this. And nobody can tell me any different. Now for you, that's on you, okay? That's your personal life. You do whatever you want. I'm not a professional. I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do. I can't be responsible for that, but this is my personal experiences. I will do a part 2 to this conversation, and I'll get a little more into little interesting details about things I've seen on kids and the things that they fixate on, and a little bit more about this interesting reincarnation, past life, energetic stuff for those who may find it interesting. But right now I gotta go. Okay. Trying to think if I forgot anything. I'll see you guys next time.